I recently returned from a 7-day Alaskan cruise in a penthouse suite on Princess Cruise Lines. In this video, I'll be comparing the Princess Suite experience with the Haven Suite experience on Norwegian. I'll discuss things like the check-in process, which cabins are better, dining options, the concierge, the perks you receive for staying in a suite, and much more. So if all of this sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. Hi everyone, my name is Tim and my channel is called Tim at Sea. I'm a big fan of cruising, sometimes solo, sometimes with family and friends, and my goal with this channel is to share my experiences, tips, tricks, and other information that will hopefully help you make the most of your cruise vacations. Last fall, I sailed on an Alaskan cruise aboard the Discovery Princess. I booked a mini suite cabin originally, but placed some bids on some stateroom upgrades using the Princess Upgrade program. As luck would have it, I was awarded an upgrade to a penthouse suite and ended up saving a ton of money over the normal published rates. Now, if you want to learn about my experience with the bidding process, how to bid, and what I thought of this particular experience, you can check this video up here. I actually did a series of a few videos on this topic, and I'll add links to those videos down in the description below. Now, this is the third time I've sailed in a suite on a cruise ship. The first two times were in the Haven on Norwegian Cruise Line. Once on the Encore, also to Alaska back in October 2020. This was right after the COVID restart. And once again on a transatlantic on the Prima in 2022. I thought it might be fun and hopefully informative to compare and contrast the suite experiences on these two cruise lines. At the end, I'll discuss whether or not I thought it was worth all that extra cash, and trust me, it's a lot of extra cash, especially on one of these cruise lines, more on that later, to upgrade to a suite on these sailings, and let you know my choice on which experience was my favorite. But before we jump in, I'd just like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. It takes just a second or two. It costs you nothing, but it means the world to me, so thank you in advance. We'll start with the check-in experience. Both cruise lines advertise priority embarkation and disembarkation at the beginning and end of the cruise as one of the suite benefits. On Princess Embarkation Day, my first stop was a crazy long line to pick up my medallion. This acts as the key to your stateroom. Now, this can be avoided altogether if you have your medallion shipped to you ahead of time, and I would definitely recommend that you do that and wish that I had done that. From there, I basically just walked on the ship once I had my medallion, but I didn't really see any special lines or waiting areas for suite guests. I suppose it's possible that I just missed it, but I didn't see anything. On Norwegian, as soon as you get to the port, there are signs leading to specific check-in locations that are reserved exclusively for Haven guests. Both times I was checked in quickly and waited to get on the ship in a small lounge area that had complimentary snacks, coffee, juices, and other beverages available. When the ship was cleared for boarding, the concierge team escorted us on the ship through the Haven area and into the Haven lounge. We were introduced to the rest of the concierge team, who let us know that they could help with anything we needed while on board. The winner this round goes to Norwegian. When you book the Haven, you're treated like a VIP from the moment you arrive at the port. From what I saw, the check-in process on Princess was the same for everyone. Again, I don't know if this was the norm or not, but it's what I experienced on this particular sailing. The next topic I'll discuss today is what I'll call the customer service experience. I'm including the concierge in this category, as well as the butler experience that you get on Norwegian. Now, both cruise lines offer a concierge and an exclusive lounge that's reserved for suite or Haven guests. The concierge is there to act as your own personal guest services person or team who can help you with pretty much anything you want to do on the ship. This would include things like making dining reservations, booking shows, shore excursions, or any other issues you would normally visit guest services for. Typically, when I'm sailing as a non-suite guest, I spend much of the first day running around to various areas of the ship and waiting in separate lines to make dining reservations, shows, book excursions, etc. Venues and excursions can fill up fast, so it can be a pretty stressful time to have to take care of all of this as soon as you get on board. Having a single point of contact to handle all this for you is a very nice benefit. In my experience, the concierge can usually pull strings and get you into sold-out restaurants or events anyway, so this is one less thing to worry about when starting your vacation. On both Norwegian and Princess, I found the concierge team to be extremely helpful and friendly. Both lounges had upscale snack and drink amenities available every time I visited. I found it very convenient to just have to visit one person for anything I wanted to do on board. One additional perk you get when you book the Haven on Norwegian is your own personal butler for your cabin. The butler can do things like set up dinner for you on your balcony, keep your minibar stocked with all your favorites, and help with any other cabin preferences you might have. While Princess doesn't offer butler services, I felt like I could probably have had similar perks if I had just asked the concierge or my cabin steward. Still, it's nice to have a dedicated contact for requests like these, and you can call on your butler at any time via a private phone if you need anything. I'll give the slight edge here to Norwegian simply because they offer the butler service while Princess does not, but all in all, I was extremely impressed with the service and convenience from the staff on both cruise lines. Next, I'd like to do a little bit of a comparison between the cabins I've experienced in the Haven and on Princess. Now, it's important to note that obviously there are many different types of suites available on these cruise lines. I will say that the cabins I experienced were some of the least expensive cabins in the suite category that you can get on both lines. On Norwegian, I had a Haven courtyard penthouse with a large balcony on the Encore, and I can't remember what my cabin was on the Prima, but I know it was the least expensive Haven category available. On Princess, I had a penthouse suite. I think the Vista suite is actually a slight step down from the penthouse, but the price difference is typically not huge between these two. Now, when I think of a suite in a hotel or something, I think of a multi-room setup with maybe a separate bedroom and living area. On cruise ships, since the cabins are typically smaller, a suite can just be a somewhat larger room than the average balcony stateroom. The two Haven cabins I've stayed in fall into this category. They were slightly more spacious than standard staterooms, but still only contained one main room and one bathroom. These rooms had a nice sitting area and a small dining table, more upscale furniture, fancy coffee machines, larger bathrooms with upgraded amenities, and larger balconies. The bathrooms in both of these suites were very luxurious. There was swanky rainfall shower heads, body jets, and upscale soaps and shampoos. The penthouse suite on Princess had a floor plan that was more in line with how I would personally envision a suite. It had a rather large living room area with a seating area, dining table, writing desk, a separate TV, and a minibar. The bedroom was a separate room altogether, though it was only separated by a curtain. The bathroom was quite large with a soaking tub and large shower, and the water closet was in a separate room, which is always nice when sharing a cabin with multiple guests. While the Princess cabin was definitely larger, I didn't feel like the furniture was really any different in the suite compared to standard cabins I've stayed in the past. The bathroom was definitely much larger and more luxurious, especially the shower, which tends to be quite cramped for tall guys like me. There was also a great deal more storage available in the Princess cabin compared to the Norwegian cabins. So if you value more space to stretch out, larger bathrooms, and more storage in your suite experience, you'll probably appreciate Princess more. If you don't need as much space and value more luxurious furnishings and bathrooms, the Haven should be more your speed. For me personally, as a solo traveler, I'm going to give the nod to Norwegian on this, but only by a small margin. All the extra space and storage is nice, and the balcony was larger on my Princess ship, but I valued the more upscale furniture and luxurious shower a bit more. Had I been traveling with even one more person, I probably would have chosen Princess. You really can't go wrong with either one. Alright, so now let's move on to the special perks you receive by booking a suite on Princess or the Haven on Norwegian. On paper, they share quite a few similarities, and I've already discussed a few of them. You've got the priority embarkation and disembarkation both at the start and end of the cruise, but also at tender ports. You have the dedicated concierge team and butler that I've already discussed. On Princess, you get what's called reserved dining in the main dining room, and I'll discuss that in more detail in a minute. An upgraded priority room service menu is also included with full lunch and dinner offerings, complimentary specialty dining for daily breakfast, and also specialty dining for dinner on embarkation day. The reserved dining I mentioned basically gets you a separate entrance to the main dining room with no waiting for check-in. On my sailing on the Discovery Princess, there were 2 entrances to the main dining room, one on each side of the ship. Suite guests were allowed to enter one entrance and everyone else had to enter on the other side. There was a small, subtle sign nearby that said reserved dining on it, but non-suite guests were coming up all the time trying to enter through the suite entrance. They were told that this entrance was actually the exit and they should go to the other side. Then the next person in line would walk up, and they were a suite guest, so they were escorted right in. It led to a lot of confused looks that probably could have been easily avoided with a little more signage, but it was effective enough and I never had to wait to sit down. There was often an extra item on the menu for suite guests, like a small pasta side dish or salad, for example, and it was often made right in the dining room itself. But the food menu and service was otherwise the same as what the non-suite guests would get. One other dining perk on the Discovery and Enchanted Princess ship specifically is called 360 An Extraordinary Experience. This was an immersive, multi-core culinary experience with flavors from all over the world. It took place inside a sort of panoramic theater room that showed video all around you about how the food is grown and sourced. This experience was truly a delight, and you won't want to miss it if you're sailing on one of these vessels. As for the updated room service menu, I might have just missed it, but I didn't see anything different on the menu in my app as a suite guest. I did order breakfast one time with the door hang tag, and it did seem to have a few additional breakfast items on it, omelets and that sort of thing. While the food arrived in a time frame specified, it was pretty cold and it didn't feel very priority to me. Switching gears to the Haven, the perks are actually pretty similar on paper. Of course, you still get priority access to everything, but they definitely take it a step further on Norwegian. I already mentioned how you're escorted on and off the ship by the concierge team at embarkation and at the end of your voyage, but it doesn't stop there. The team will also escort you right off the ship at ports and to dedicated Haven seating areas at shows, often in private elevators. There are also Haven-only entrances to get back on the ship during port stops, with team members waiting to escort you back up to the lounge, your cabin, or wherever you're going. It's truly an elevated experience in the Haven, and you can tell that the staff wants to make you feel as pampered as possible. The Haven also has its own restaurant that serves daily breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and features more upscale entree options. Think filet mignon, caviar, and lobster. The one downside is that the menu is the same every day, but the food served here is definitely a huge step up from the standard dining rooms. All this said, I think the primary advantage that the Haven has over Princess would be all of the private spaces. The Haven simply has many more areas on the ship that are exclusive to Haven guests. This will obviously vary some from ship to ship, but while Discovery Princess had a small concierge lounge with snack and drink selections, the Haven will have a similar but much larger private lounge, a private restaurant, an outdoor sun deck, and a courtyard with a private pool on some ships. All of these extra spaces mean that it's just that much easier for Haven guests to find sanctuary on the ship, and this can be a big deal when your cruise is sailing at full capacity. Crowds are much lower compared to other public spaces. There are fewer kids running around, the furniture is plusher, the drinks are flowing, world-class chefs are there to serve you food you won't want to leave. In fact, many people I've talked to said that they never or very rarely would leave the Haven areas when they're on the ship. So in case you couldn't tell, I'm going to give Norwegian the definitive nod in the perks category. The perks on Princess are great, don't get me wrong, but they simply can't match all the luxurious benefits you get in the Haven. To wrap things up, I just want to be clear that I had an absolutely wonderful time on all of these cruises. The staff and service was phenomenal, the food was great, and my stateroom was beautiful and very comfortable on all these ships. You really can't go wrong sailing on either line, and doing so in a suite just takes the whole experience to another level. I definitely recommend trying it at least once if you have the means to do so. On Princess, my cabin was definitely the most spacious cabin I've ever stayed at on a cruise ship. It was very large and comfortable with tons of storage, a huge bathroom, and a well-stocked minibar. The concierge lounge was literally right across the hall, so I could walk over there easily, grab a quick snack or drink, and have a dedicated point of contact for anything I needed on the ship. The 360 dining experience was a highlight of the trip for me. I just hope that Princess starts offering it on more of their fleet. It truly is not to be missed. Now, I won't call this a downside since I have no complaints about the service on board, as I mentioned, but just in comparing it to Norwegian, I guess I'll say that I just didn't really feel all that priority on Princess sometimes. Aside from the small lounge, there were really no private spaces just for suite guests, and the promises of priority embarkation and disembarkation didn't really pan out for me. The reserved dining worked well enough, but the dining experience itself was pretty much the same for suite guests as it was for regular guests. All in all, I felt like it was mainly paying extra for the larger cabin and a few additional perks, but not much else. For many, that will probably be enough to justify the cost. On Norwegian, I felt like the benefits of choosing the Haven kicked in as soon as I arrived at the port and continued all the way until the end of the voyage. As a Haven guest, you really feel like a VIP in everything you do. You have first priority for many ship amenities, beautiful staterooms with private butler service, and multiple private spaces to relax and watch the sea go by. It's truly a ship within a ship experience. Well, I guess we've reached that point in the video where I need to provide my verdict on which experience I enjoyed more. If you've managed to watch the whole video to this point, and first of all, if you have, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But the winner here is pretty obvious. In my personal opinion, the Haven experience beats out Princess and does so by a fairly wide margin. But of course, there's one major consideration that we've yet to discuss, and that is price. Now, of course, it's going to be expensive to book a suite on pretty much any cruise line, but the Haven on Norwegian, based on my price research, is typically much more expensive than a similar sailing on Princess. For comparison's sake, I did a quick check on 2 similar 7-day Alaskan sailings from Seattle, and found that the Haven for 2 guests would cost almost double that of a penthouse suite on Princess. Obviously, this is going to vary from sailing to sailing, ship to ship, but it becomes a little easier to see why the perks on Norwegian seem so much better. If you're interested in booking some of these experiences and are more flexible with your travel, I would encourage you to shop around. There are deals to be had on both cruise lines, and you also have the ability to bid on upgrades on both of them. Winning these bids is becoming a bit more rare these days, since most of these ships are sailing at near or full capacity, but it never hurts to try. Thanks again for watching today. I really appreciate it. Subscribe and like the video. Doing so will really make my day. And let us know down in the comments what you think of living the suite life on cruise ships if you've done it before. Or if you have any questions about the experience or my experiences in suites, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.